All right, well, the last few people are getting a cup of coffee, getting something to eat. We'll get started. So good morning. Good morning. I'm Mark Rieger. I'm the provost and your host today for the Office of Public Policy Events' first ever event. And it's the Civility Summit. And so I'm so glad to see all of you here today talk about something that's so important for us at FGCU. So I've got just a couple of opening comments, and then we're going to have a leadership panel that comes up here in just a few minutes. And actually, those of you on the leadership panel, if you want to go ahead and take a seat at the table up here, I'm just going to spend a few minutes opening and setting the stage for today, and then it's going to be up to you to do your comments in just a moment here. All right, so why are we here? What are we doing here? Well, for a number of reasons, we want to talk about civility. Maybe in these days, it seems like incivility might be getting the best of us, but we were recently told to develop a civil discourse plan by the state, and Mitch Cordova actually led that effort. Thank you, Mitch. And we handed that in maybe a little bit over a year ago. And then the Office of Public Policy Events was said to be created. And we took these mandates and we tried to make something really interesting and really valuable out of them. I just want to take you back to 1996. Who was here in 96? Let's see. Anybody? There you go. Dave Vasquez was here in 96. All right, Dave, thank you. All right. Gets a door prize or something. But so who knows? David might have been a co-author on these. But if you go back to the mission, vision, and guiding principles of FGCU that were written back in the days of mud and trailers before there was anything here, two of those guiding principles actually go to civility. All right, so if you think about it, here we are because we're responding to some extent to some mandates, but all the way back to Roy McTarnigan, all the way back to the founding principles of this university, we were going to vigorously protect freedom of inquiry and expression, and we categorically expect civility and mutual respect to be practiced in all deliberations. We said that before there was a faculty here. Then another one that kind of got more into sustainability, which is a hallmark of FGCU. Informed and engaged citizens are essential to the creation of a civil and sustainable society. And I believe those things. I came here because of those things, and I hope that you believe in them as well. And we're going to hopefully redefine them and streamline those as we go through the strategic planning this year. But that, I would say, that's why we're here, not so much things that have happened recently. All right, so the Statement of Free Expression, you can find it at the bottom of every single web page at FGCU. So if you look in the footer at the bottom and click on Statement of Free Expression, this is what comes up here. And so we actually approved this in the cabinet back in May of 22, and I'll let you go ahead and read through that. And we are committed to free expression. Everybody's ideas are important. FGCU is a big tent where everybody is welcome. All right, and just to kind of tease up a little event that's going to occur in the very near future. Again, this is the first of the Office of Public Policy events. And the second one will be on October 16th. And so we've lined up two speakers here. The intent of this legislation that brings these people is to present widely divergent viewpoints on current topics. And so we had two recent Supreme Court decisions that were made this summer. You probably were aware of that. So affirmative action was struck down by the Supreme Court, and then a Biden initiative to forgive about $400 million worth of debt for about 40 million people was also struck down. And so we'll talk about that with two people that you probably have seen on television before. If you watch the pundit shows, Mark Lamont Hill. He's currently at Temple University near Philadelphia. I think he's in transit to another university right now. I'm not 100% sure based on his email. He'll take the left, the progressive viewpoint of that. And then Robert George, you've probably seen him debate Cornel West. And anybody know who Cornel West is? You do, because you gave me the idea. Okay. Cornel is actually running for president on the Green Party ticket, and so he was not available for the debate for Robert George, but Robert takes the more conservative and right-leaning viewpoint on those things. So we're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be moderated by Christopher Phillips, who has written several books on civility. He actually runs an organization called Socrates Cafe, and he will talk about the art and science of civil discourse. And so it'll be a full day of events. And I just found out from my colleague provosts at other universities is we are going to stream it to them. So we're hopefully going to be engaged all around the state of Florida with these topics. Okay, so today's goals, here's what we want to do. We want to reaffirm our commitment to the Statement of Free Expression. We need to do that every year, so this is the time to do that. But really importantly here, we want to hear from the students, the faculty, the staff, and the board leadership on civility. We'll go to the panel in just a moment here. And we want to get your input on enhancing civility on campus. What can we do? And there's some sticky note exercises in the back. Let's see if I have a slide. Yeah, I do have a slide on that. There's some sticky note exercises. If you look way in the back in this corner here where I'm pointing, we want to, just at any point in time when the idea comes upon you, grab a sticky note and go back there. What do we need to do more of or start doing, okay, to enhance civility on our campus? What do we need to quit doing or do less of? Sometimes it's a matter of just getting the barriers out of the way and just letting go of history. And then if you would give me a little bit of advice there too on future topics for Office of Public Policy events. We have one that's open in the spring yet. We're going to try to bring a couple of legislators here after the session to talk about a bill that they may have passed together. So that'll be interesting to see. Actually, a Democrat and a Republican agreeing on something, so we'll see what happens with that one. But if you have other ideas for events, put those up on the sticky note exercise back there. And then after we do our leadership panel here, we're going to have a roundtable exercise. So choose your friends wisely, sit at the right table here, and we want you to discuss what does civility mean for us here at FGCU, and then how do we illustrate it in everyday life, okay? All right, so Trustee Gable, if you would come on up. And where are the rest of our leaders? Who are we missing?
That's you.
Yeah, me, but, okay, I thought there was one more, but, okay, here we go. There's a slide for that. All right, so we're gonna start with our leadership panel, and they're gonna talk about what civility really means to them from the standpoint of being the leadership, the president or the figurehead for different constituencies on campus. And I think we'll just go in the order that's up on that slide. How's that? And then I'll close it out at the bottom. So, Trustee Cavan, please.
So, in my view, civility is something that allows us to have really difficult conversations that allow us to grow as individuals and expand beyond our comfort zone and challenge the beliefs that we hold as facts. A lot of the most meaningful experiences that I've had here at the university have come from moments within the classroom where students are being civil with each other and having a conversation about ideas and topics that we don't agree on, that we don't see eye to eye on, because that allows me to see perspectives that I've never even considered before. And through civility, we're able to dive deep into those topics and learn a lot about them and really get to the bottom of why it is that other people hold the beliefs they hold, and allows us to assess whether or not those are beliefs that we think would work in our own lives. And I think that it's really, really important that we continue to uphold that culture of respecting each other for our beliefs and hearing each other out. Now, I do want to say, though, that it's unfortunately not black and white and easy. Civility isn't as simple as just saying that you should be nice to one another when you're having an argument. In my view, the topic of civility is not settled. It's still in flux, and there's still questions that we need to answer. For example, how can we practice civility with someone that is intolerant of our existence? How can we practice civility in the face of violence? And do the boundaries of civility look different for those with power and those without power? I think that all of those things are really important considerations, complicated considerations that we need to take into account as we're developing our plan for what the future of civility looks like for this university. And that's why I'm excited to hear from you during this event.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. It's a tough act to follow. Emery's always got wonderful words to say. I am an associate professor here at FGCU. This is my 10th year, and it's my first year as Faculty Senate President. And so I just wanted to take a couple moments and speak about civility from a faculty member's viewpoint, as well as the role of Senate in the university community. So civility, like Provost Rieger said, is at the core of our university guiding principles and also within the Senate bylaws. Embedded in the mission of Senate is a commitment to uphold the principles of academic integrity, ethical behavior, and collegiality. All of those underscore really the importance of civility and the success of an academic community. Through shared governance, faculty are committed to collaborative decision-making and open dialogue. Senate is really just one arena that provides a forum for the exchange of ideas and information among faculty. But the process is only effective if we engage in civil discourse, respecting diverse viewpoints, and fostering an environment of mutual respect. Our goal is to ensure that our discussions are productive and that our decisions are well-informed and reflect the collective wisdom of all of our faculty community here at FGCU. I had asked several of my colleagues before coming to this, what are some of the issues of incivility that are affecting faculty now? And several things came up. Mistrust, political viewpoints, dismissive behaviors. But one that kept rising to the top for me was not, I don't think, unique to faculty, but the current climate of polarization. We're very quick as people to jump to an us versus them, and it's difficult for us to take into account viewpoints that conflict with our own beliefs. Disagreement and opposing views are not inherently bad. It's kind of the opposite, right? We don't have a lot of growth by just agreeing with each other. We need to be able to discuss opposing viewpoints, but we need to be able to do that civilly for growth and progress, authentically valuing the input of others. So one of the things that we say in my house is we need to listen more and not just wait for our turn to speak and really value the input of others. So one last thing from me is just a final thought. As faculty, civility should extend beyond our professional lives and formality. We need to engage in civil discourse both professionally and personally to model what we expect from others and our students, from our colleagues, and from our community. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Thank you, Lindsay. Good morning. I am Jenna Padilla, the Staff Advisory Council President for this year. Excuse me. I am going into my 14th year here at FGCU. And so I'm glad to see all your faces this morning. I'm here to talk a little bit on the perspective of SAC and civility and civil discourse. SAC was founded in 2000 as a way to promote open and effective communication with staff members and the university. Collaborative and shared leadership among all university constituents is critical to creating a campus environment conducive of advancing the student, faculty, and staff achievements. As our mission states, as a proactive partner in the university's shared governance process, SAC provides a forum that directly addresses the issues and concerns of the staff at FGCU and strives to ensure a campus climate that supports staff growth and recognition and reflects a strong, enthusiastic, and positive quality work life. The staff governance system encourages transparency and reasoned discourse. Respectful consideration of different viewpoints is crucial in civil discourse. We should be encouraging reasoned exchanges, active listening, and engaged participation. Civility doesn't mean appeasement or avoiding important differences. It simply means listening and talking about those differences with respect. Incivility is often prompted by thoughtlessness rather than actual malice, and these acts are usually easily overlooked, yet they add up and can erode engagement and morale. Creativity suffers, performance deteriorates. These are some of the issues that have come up continuously in our Staff Advisory Council meetings and a survey that was conducted about 18 months ago regarding the campus climate and staff morale. We need to stay vigilant in keeping workplace civility. We can do this if we all commit to a culture characterized by substantive exchanges that exchange explicit articulation of areas of agreement and disagreement. Thank you.
All right.
Well, apparently I'm the only one up here who hasn't prepared some remarks, but I'm also the only volunteer on the panel. So this is an interesting discussion for me. I've been on the board. I think I'm in my 11th year. I think this is my 6th year of being chair, which candidly is probably too long for any chair, but here we are. And think about the constituencies that the board serves, okay? We get our funding from Tallahassee, so we have the legislature, the governor. Our oversight body is the Board of Governors. Then we have faculty, students, staff, employers, donors. Think about that broad array of people that when I walk into a room, or any of our board members walk into a room, those are the people that we're speaking to, right? You're not gonna find a more diverse group of people, backgrounds, educations, political beliefs, religious beliefs, whatever it may be, than that constituency that I just talked about. So in my mind, in my opinion, the only way to be successful and do that and make forward progress is to listen, right? That's it. It's not any more complicated than that. If you look at just our board today as it's constituted, right? We have people who were titans of Wall Street, and I'm not saying this to pick on him, and we have a student in Emory, right? Think about how vast those levels of experience and life experiences really are, right? And his vote counts just as much as the other guys. And when you look at things from that perspective, right, I think it allows you to manage all those constituencies that I talked about. And the only way to do that, again, is to listen, right? I'll tell you personally, I have an aunt that I always tell her she's my favorite communist, right? She is as far left-wing as any human being I've ever met in my life. And I love her to death, even though we agree on very few things sometimes politically. And she's of all my family, and I have a very large family, she literally is the only one that will just text me out of the blue all the time, randomly, and just say, I love you, you're doing a great job, just keep doing your job, right? And she knows that we don't agree, but it doesn't mean I don't love her dearly. She's one of my most favorite people on this planet, and we don't agree, and that's okay. And it's unfortunate that so much of what happens politically now is the only way to have a disagreement is to hate somebody, or they're doing something bad to our country, our institution, our political system, whatever it may be. And I fundamentally disagree with that. My first real job, I worked for the first Hispanic congressman elected from Arizona. Democrat, whose parents were immigrants from Mexico and were copper miners. And I will tell you, he was about the most impactful person to me in my life. And it was simple. And I think maybe some of you have heard this story. So I started working in Congress in 93, 94, something like that. There was a big shift. The Democrats were in the majority. Newt Gingrich came in 94, and my boss was a young kind of budding star. And he had these great great jobs. He was about to chair the Hispanic caucus. He was on the appropriations committee. And for a 23-year-old kid, like, he was in the catbird seat. Like, it was great. It was fun. It was exciting. All that stuff was wiped away. And so here I am all panicked. I'm young. I'm an idiot. And I'm all worked up about it. And he comes back to Washington. And I said, Congressman, like, what are we going to do? This is terrible. All these things that you've achieved have now been taken away from you. He goes, Blake, listen, if you plan on being in this job for any period of time, you're going to be in power and you're going to be out of power. It's not complicated. And excuse my language here. He said, just don't be an asshole. Treat people well. It's going to be fine. And we got more stuff done when he was in the minority than when we were in the majority, because everybody loved the guy. And that's what I learned at 23 years old. And I try to do that every day with what we do on this board, what I do in my personal life, and what I do at the company that I run. So let me ask you guys a question. Mark, am I allowed to do this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I've been doing this a long time. Anybody have any questions? How do you guys think the board is doing from a civil discourse and all this other stuff? How do you guys think we're doing? Someone has to have an opinion in here. Not one question, no opinion. We stink, we good? Boy, I tell you what, I spoke to the faculty senate, last year, and I tell you what, they had lots of things to say. Yes, ma'am.
I'm new to the university, but
Welcome, thank you for joining us.
the question that I do have is, we're in higher education where everybody's thoughts and beliefs should be expressed and heard. And currently in our state, we have someone who is not willing to do that, as in our leader of our state. How delicate, or how do we traverse that, or how do we get through that when a person is trying to break down policies and take things away when higher education values those things that are trying to be removed? Does that make sense?
I think I understand the direction.
I'm trying to be politically correct.
No, I get it. I mean, look, all I can tell you is that I have to be, yeah. I did ask, no, hey, look, I asked for questions. That's on me. No, I think, look, I can only look at my experiences, right? And the interactions and relationships I have, right, with let's take our Senate president, for example, right? If any of you know President Pasadomo, she is as caring and genuine and smart and giving of a person as you'll ever meet, right? She's the president of the Florida Senate. So I still have faith. I still have faith. I get that there are things that are out there that are politically touchy, but at the end of the day, what we're here to talk about is to make sure that all views, right, all points of view are able to be heard, right? And I don't think that you can try to promote civility and open discourse by shutting off half the conversation. So that is not something. Now, I'm only going to be around for a couple more months. I don't think I'm going to die in a couple months. Like, my term as chair is almost over. But that's something that I've tried to promote the entire time that I've been involved with this institution, because I don't have the same life experience as so many of our students and faculty and staff, and it doesn't make my experience any more or less valid than anybody else's. So unless you have the ability to listen and be and appreciate and respect all points of view, I don't know what the point is. I really don't. That was a good question. It was a little tricky at the start. Any other questions?
Perhaps we should move ahead. And, go
Whatever
ahead.
you
Is that
want. You're the
okay?
boss.
And we'll have more time. Can you hear me okay? We'll have more time for questions after we finish this, but I want to make sure that we have enough time for you to work at your tables and to do your sticky notes and things like that. So let me be brief because everybody has said pretty much what I was going to say, so that's the virtue of going last. However, I do want to quote a famous philosopher that I think all of you know. Who knows Mr. Green? All right. I beep at that guy and wave at that guy every day. And what does he do in exchange? His hand is out there. He is so happy to see us. He greets everybody coming in the main gate. And I would agree with Emery that civility is not necessarily just being nice or being polite, but he absolutely sets the mood for coming to work every day. And I love it about him. He sent me an email and he asked me to read a couple of things. And Green, you're not here, are you? So you're not? Okay. And I think, Chris, you were working with him in the Black Faculty Association and coming up with some of these statements. So I appreciate your hard work way in advance of this for that. But Mr. Green says, okay, the Institute for Civility in Government defines civility as claiming and caring for one's identity, needs, and beliefs without degrading somebody else's in the process. And that's something I think we can live by, right? So all the things that you heard previously may be able to be summed up that way. Civility lets an individual keep their position or stance without the exchange of histories, experiences, and cultures that can lead to incivility. And then Green also reminds me that at the Dean's Council in 1996, and he didn't know I was going to do that slide, the Dean's Council in 96 actually refers to mutual respect and civility. So please beep your horn and wave at that guy when he comes in. He is heart and soul. He is part of what we stand for at this university. So very quickly, I would just say that universities are actually built for productive conflict and disagreement and civil discourse. The last bastion of free speech and debate should be right here. Okay, if the world comes tumbling down around us, this will be the last place where you see people having a civil discourse. I'm going to disagree probably with everybody on this stage at some point. Not right away, but at some point during this semester, we'll have a disagreement, but we will continue to live lives together. And I know that we all agree that FGCU is a great place to be, and we all have that one common goal in our minds. We have different pathways to reach that goal, and that's okay. That's really what civility is about pathways. And 17 years in higher ed administration now, there's this thing called productive conflict. You ever hear that term? Productive conflict, when I'm sitting around a conference room table, the last thing I want everybody to do is just say, yes, that's what I thought too. Oh, come on now. You want to have enough productive conflict that you have different ideas, that people aren't afraid to say things, to add to the conversation, to disagree, so that you can reach the right decision. And it's hard. It's hard to create that environment. It's hard to foster that moment in the middle of productive conflict. It's not all out debate and then a bunch of yes people sitting around and not adding anything. Would refer to a couple of TED Talks. We were flashing one when you came in. See the one by Christine Parath, if you don't mind, and then you can actually scan the QR code, and Christine has an assessment where you can answer about 40 questions, I think, and it gives you a rating of where you rate on civility. But she makes the point in her TED Talk that incivility costs us in terms of bottom line productivity and not just morale. All right, it actually costs us. She does research on this. She's in, I think, the business school at Georgetown. And incivility, she notes, affects not only those people involved in the uncivil behavior, but those who witness it. So if you are in your department, in your dorm room, wherever you may be, just witness incivility, it actually affects you. And so those are two really good reasons why we should try harder that way. Then if you really want to have fun, see a TED Talk by Teresa Bejan, B-E-J-A-N. It is a lot of fun to listen to her, a very dense talk. What she says there is, civility makes our disagreements tolerable so we can share a life together. It's really about how you disagree, isn't it? It's not politeness or niceness. It's not avoiding people with whom you disagree. She says that's doing civility wrong. It requires courage, and it's the virtue that makes disagreement possible and even productive. So anyway, I invite you on your own time to take a dive into those. They are very, very informative. All right, let's give a round of applause for our panel here. We'll move on to the next.
Everybody, my name is Diane O'Day. I'm an adjunct instructor here. I was formerly an employee here at FGCU for 6.5 years. As you can see, my colleagues are current full-time employees, staff, and faculty at FGCU. So we were just discussing what does civility mean for FGCU. And one thing that we talked about is the fact that civility is actually kind of a continuum, and that we're talking about how do you have these very difficult conversations, which is important. As an instructor, I always encourage that everyone should bring themselves to a discussion, even if we don't agree, and that we have those civil discourse, right? So that happens a lot in the classroom. But when we're talking about staff, which is primarily my experience here, we need to also talk about what are individual behaviors that promote civility amongst each other. So behaviors such as saying good morning to people, engaging in side conversations with people, really centering each other's humanity in these discussions. So there's the individual behavior of what we can do in our day-to-day lives, which I think we're gonna get into, what can we do to promote that? But then I think that starts to aggregate to our ability to have these more difficult conversations. So when we look at civility-related programming, I think, and I'd like to think my colleagues agree, that we should think about how do we cultivate individual capacity for civility in addition to these more out there, higher level discussions about civility at an institution.
I'm Mark Bitts, a former businessman, and so much of it was said at the beginning. I don't think we had a lot to add, but one thing I would add that hasn't been said is I think part of civility is the opportunity to learn from one another. And shame on us if we enter a conversation without an open mind and an attitude to learn.
All right, there we go. Hands are flying up. They're flying up. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Michael Collins from the College of Business. And we had an interesting conversation because we have some faculty and some students with us here. And unfortunately, I was kind of surprised. The perception is that we can't necessarily always speak our minds on our campus. And so to maintain civility, we keep our opinions, our thoughts to ourselves. It was kind of interesting. We have two different generations in our group. Some of us went to college many years ago. I went to college in the late 70s, and I was talking about how when I went away to college, I was kind of an open book. I was kind of a blank piece of paper because I didn't really have strong opinions or positions. I didn't know if I was liberal or conservative, or I hadn't been labeled when I got there. And college was a great opportunity to hear what other people thought, get different opinions, hear different perspectives, be around people who were different than me. You know, my girlfriend in college was very liberal. I didn't even know that until years after I graduated, saying, gosh, Amy, who I dated in college, she was really liberal. I never really realized that. Whereas the students, some of the students here expressed the fact that certain subjects come up and I just keep my opinion to myself because I know some of my classmates are gonna judge me or categorize me because of that. Or they're gonna misinterpret what I say and I don't want them to misinterpret it. Then it ends up on social media that I think this And it's not really what I think because my thoughts and ideas that I expressed in a class were miscategorized or mischaracterized, I should say. So it's kind of interesting because I think most of us, particularly us of the older generation, I went to college in the late 70s, right, for my undergraduate degree. You know, we went away to college and we kind of explored all sorts of different ideas and thoughts, et cetera. And maybe that's not happening as much as it should on our campus because of fear of being put in a box. You know, we come out of high school. One student mentioned that by 7th grade, you're picking a side. You're either conservative or you're liberal, you know? So it's like you're forced to pick a side. And that becomes your social circle and your friends, et cetera. And you're safe with your own kind. They didn't say it exactly that way, but that's how I interpreted it. You feel safe with your own kind, but you're in enemy territory when you're not with your own kind. And again, you don't know all your classmates, so you just keep to yourself.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Michael. Saw some other hands up right there.
We had an interesting discussion here at this table, and a lot of thoughts were shared in terms of civility is a difficult thing to define sometimes. It's a difficult thing to be perceived as being when you're a person who's more or less used to speaking straightforwardly and speaking their mind. But I think we had a really interesting discussion about how to pull off civility so that it doesn't seem inauthentic or phony, because it really can if you're just politely listening sort of to people. And that was said somewhat up on the panel, you know, in terms of we listen, we act polite, but we're really just thinking of what we're going to say next, you know. And so I think one way to do that, just put in a slight plug here, I teach a course in emotional intelligence here for the first time this semester. It can lead to one of our digital badges. But a big part of emotional intelligence is something called empathy. And some people call it perspective taking. And I think one of the ways that we can at least come off as being authentic in our civility and really promoting a culture of civility, not just individual civility, is that we're people who try to understand the perspectives of others, not just to listen to them, but really to try to get inside of their mind and look at the world through their eyes for a few minutes. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but try to understand why they feel the way they do, why they think the way they do, why they're speaking the way they're speaking. If we all did that, we could probably be a lot more authentic at being civil with each other.
I'm Laura Frost. I'm in the College of Arts and Sciences. One of the things, so we looked at the question, we're like, this might be a trick question because it says, what does it mean for FGCU, not just what is civility in general? So one of the things that I mentioned at the table, and I saw people nodding, so I think they were in agreement, was that it means, you know, we're kind of a microcosm of society. We should be modeling civility within our university so that the people that come out of our university are being civil in their own lives. And so that's one of the things that I thought about when we were talking about what does civility mean for FGCU.
That's really good, Laura. I agree with that. And we actually came off of more kind of similar to what Matthew was saying with authenticity. And we really centered on the idea of that you have to have mutual respect. And I think if we go off of kind of what Laura is saying, that means modeling that really well for our students and really demonstrating that. But with mutual respect, it really comes down to, you know, not just listening, but also really, truly coming to the table with an open mind to hear it. And so sometimes I think it does come off kind of fake if you say we want everybody to have their input, but we're not authentically wanting to really, truly hear what the other side has to say and possibly even change our mind, you know? At least everybody coming to the table knowing that there's that possibility to come up with something new or different or a different understanding with each other is really kind of the first step in building that mutual respect and building trust, which is going to go a long way, you know, for the university with that.
All right, now it's time for the shy people to pipe up. And Emery, just feel free to just walk over to a table. Just go for it. It's okay. It's not uncivil to do that. There we go.
My name is Jarvis Judge Barnes. I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Outreach here at FGCU. And so what we were discussing here, it kind of piggybacks off of some of the things that were said. So in this day and age, I was talking to her about speaking up and speaking out against or for or against, what your viewpoints may be. And we had the discussion of she feels, or we feel that in the age of social media and with information being so fast to be put out and taken by whoever's being able to read it, that sometimes the message is misinterpreted, or you're uncategorized in a certain box or misinformed about basically what the meaning of what that message or the intent of that message was. And so for FGCU and Civility, what we're really wanting to see and hope, and it's happening, but we want to be more intentional in that messaging and the target audiences who we're trying to reach. And so, to make those individuals feel that my belief or my value or my input means something. I have that safe space to be able to say it, that, where I'm getting my information from, I can use it as a reliable source, because as we know that, with information being so readily at our fingertips, a lot of it is misinformation. And so if we're comfortable in the source of where we're getting our information, and FGCU is intentional in the messaging, I think that'll promote that civility among all of us moving forward.
There's a hand up over here.
Just two things. One of our conversations was that, from a academic perspective, we often think of civility as being something like academic freedom or something that takes place primarily in the classroom, and that's true. But also, thinking back to my own college experience, so much of what we learned about civility was, 90% of it was outside of the classroom. It was who you were living with, who you were eating with, who you were talking to as you crossed campus, who you saw and maybe didn't talk to, and so, there's that really important learning that's outside of the four walls of the classroom that I think is something that has a lot to do with civility. Also, I would like to put a plug in for tomorrow, strategic planning at noon, right next door. We're going to be talking about defining the student experience. So a lot of what we do here today can really kind of move into action by talking about what do we want students who graduate from FGCU, who are here on campus with us, who are in our classrooms, in our residence halls, what do we want that experience to be? What do we want them to get out of it? And so that can be everything from academic and career readiness, but also what we're talking about today with civility, right? Those are some of we're going to have table conversations, we're going to have breakout groups, we're going to have some reporting similar to this. And so some of the things that maybe we talk about today can kind of inform this conversation tomorrow. So I know we're writing some things down, but it's a really cool opportunity for this to kind of civility conversation to directly go into a really important part of our strategic planning. So it's open to faculty, staff, and students. See you tomorrow at noon, right next door. Thank you.
All right, a shameless plug. Over here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ming Nguyen of the Honors College. So at our table, we talk about many things, including how lovely our summer was. But I just want to share 2 points that we spent some time on. The first one is critical thinking, which is a virtue that we try to promote at the university. And of course, there are many conceptions of critical thinking, but I think that in general, critical thinking entails things such as intellectual integrity, intellectual courage, intellectual autonomy, thinking for yourself, responsiveness to reason, etc., etc. And we find it very difficult for us to encourage, and multiple perspectives. And we find it very difficult for us as as instructors, as staff and administrators to cultivate this in our students unless we take civility seriously and pursue that in a genuine manner. And another thing that we talk about is also something that very dear to President Timur's heart, and that is partnership. Is teamwork is so important at the university. Cooperation, coordination, collaboration, and all those things. And it's very hard for us to pursue teamwork in a productive way unless we build an atmosphere where people can express their views genuinely and in a civil way. And so those are the two things that I just want to mention. They are very crucial for us, critical thinking on the one hand and partnership on the other. Thank you.
Hey, folks, okay. All right, so the roving microphones are about, and we want to hear how we illustrate civility in everyday life. And I think there was a student that had their hand up. I think there was a student that wanted to go first. Aha.
All right. Oh, wow, that's loud. Hi, everybody. My name is Tanner. I'm a senior here at the university. This was something I ended up putting on a sticky note, but then we had discussed it a little bit and thought about it a little further. But I think it should be acknowledged that there's a bit of a culture of fear in just expressing your values, expressing your opinion, expressing what you think, which can be a bit ironic because we have a whole freedom of expression statement. And you know, I mean, look at the sticky notes over there versus what we've said verbally. And so I think a really important thing in illustrating this is finding a way to foster the conversations where we don't feel afraid to express ourselves. We feel just as comfortable saying verbally what we've put on those sticky notes over there. And I don't quite know how to foster that, but I think it's something worth conversating about and acknowledging.
All right, thank you. Who's next?
My name is Oliver. I'm a sophomore here at FGCU, and we had a long, very interesting conversation. And as we were giving examples of things we could do, I thought of something that I did in my Elements of Honors class. So every day we had the class once a week. Every day when we came in, she had a question on the board, and it was a debate topic, but it was probably the silliest debate topic you could think of. Examples are: how many holes are in a straw? 1 or 2. How would a dog wear pants? How would a giraffe wear a bow tie? And every day when she took attendance, she asked us what we thought and why. And these were like I said, some of the silliest questions you can think of, but it got us talking. It got us debating with one another, and we didn't feel like, oh, I don't want to say where a giraffe wants to wear a bow tie, because no one's going to judge you based on where you say a giraffe's going to wear a bow tie. So I didn't realize it until we were having this conversation that was her original intent with those questions, was to get us debating about any topic in a way that was productive and back and forth, and listening to one person and then responding with what you believed. And I feel like we should do more of that.
Okay, find the shy people then. See some hands going up.
Hello. Oh, Vivek wants me to show you our illustration. Namaste. So one thing I do to try, and we talked about that we try to illustrate civility, is by finding something we like about everyone that we meet. And then if they say something that we disagree with, we can be like, oh, but they did this, and they're such a good person because of this. And so we should really think carefully about what they're saying, even if we disagree.
It's me again. I'm speaking on behalf of my table. So one thing that came up is, so I study civic engagement and how to build the capacity for people to engage in difficult dialogue. And one primary form of that, and it sounds silly, it sounds simple, but it's breaking bread. How many conversations did we have today? We had some snacks. We had time before this event, right, to talk to each other, get to know each other. So Oliver mentioned that there's some silly questions. So I think that one way we can do this is establish a sense of community in non-strategic planning ways. No offense, Dr. Motley, but we can do both, right? So we can have fun. Like, those strategic planning meetings will become stronger if we also have time to engage as a community with each other and getting to know each other individually. And this doesn't preclude us from talking about things about our lives, right? So we can talk about, you know, our experiences, what feels like home to us when we're eating. We can talk about different foods that we eat as, you know, individuals. I'm personally Middle Eastern. I grew up eating Middle Eastern foods. So having these discussions can actually reveal things about ourselves that centers our humanity. So then when we get into these discussions where we have to talk about what is the student experience, just like what was just said, we can remind ourselves that these are all human beings who have their own experiences, and it would return to empathy, which someone mentioned earlier. It would cultivate that empathy amongst each other. The more we do non-agenda related activities that where the agenda is to get to know each other.
Very well done. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask a question if you're not afraid to answer with your hand up. How many of you have been in a meeting, or if you're a student, you were in a class and you did something and then you went home that night and laid awake all night and thought about your behavior? I know I have. Right, and so that's good. We're human. We reflect and we go, I wish I wouldn't have acted that way. So one of the things we were talking about at our table is the gap between what we know to be civil behavior and how we act sometimes. And I think it's important for us when we see somebody, especially if we don't interact with them a lot, engage in a way that's uncivil, or use uncivility, right, Mitch, the new word we coined. But if we engage, if we see somebody engaging that way, that we step back and remember they might have gone home that night and had a conversation with themselves and have a new start the next time we talk to each other. I think especially, and I learned this really well during COVID, when we're all in higher ed under so much stress, that we have to forgive each other a lot. Right? We have to forgive those behaviors that come out because of stress or emotion or something happened in our lives and we didn't act, and realize that every day is a new day to say, I know what civility is. I know I need to hear this person. I need to hear what they think and let it modify the way I think. And I think if we can do that and be reflective, we can forgive each other when we behave, which we all have, in ways that we would like to do better the next time. Thanks.
Okay, I think we have time for one more. One more thought. What do we do every day? There we go. Wait long enough and, okay.
This is going to go part and parcel to that. You have to decide if you're going to meet someone's energy. If they show up and they've had a bad meeting, you don't need to engage in that. So I think one of the ways you kind of demonstrate that civility is if someone comes in hot, I'm not going to always match that energy. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be like, oh, okay, we're going to let that cool a little bit. So I think part of that is how we engage with each other and how we decide to respond. Because sometimes I'm just going to take a sip of my coffee or my ice water and let that reflect for a moment, so maybe they can find a different gear.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, listen, we're coming around to the noon hour, and we're going to let you go back to your jobs. And when uncivil or incivility raises its ugly head, what do we have here at FGCU to be able to deal with that? We wanted to end with that. And what's really great, and President Timmer, unfortunately, has left here for another meeting probably, but one of the things that she did is will help craft a policy on student complaints and conflict resolution and things like that, that really defined what these wonderful people here making their way to the stage too. So we have a lot of talent, a lot of resource, and we're going to hear from each of these people here today. Sometimes it's a little bit confusing to know who to go to and for what reason. What kind of a conflict am I dealing with? What kind of a problem do I need to solve? So we'll just go right down the list. So Dan, you'll be first. And they're going to explain who they are, where they are on campus, where you can find them, and then why, what special aspect of dealing with conflict resolution that they specialize in. So Dan and everybody here, thank you for coming. Go ahead.
Well, it's almost afternoon. My name is Dr. Daniel Hoover. I serve as the University Ombuds here at the institution. I began that position in March. Prior to that, I was in the Dean of Students Office under Student Care Services. And so my office is located in Edwards Hall, 211, but we can meet you wherever you feel comfortable. We are available for faculty, staff, and students, and parents. We do hear from them quite often, related to any university concern or conflict that you have here at the institution. And so we are here to connect with you and to talk with you. We do follow our International Ombuds Association guidelines and code of ethics, which is independence, neutrality, confidentiality, and informality. And so we are a confidential resource here at the institution to hear your concerns or complaints regarding whatever you may be facing. We do not advocate for you. That is not our role. We are neutral. We do not advocate for you or the university, and we are off the record. We do some of this by active listening, coaching, clarifying policies and procedures. Shuttle diplomacy are maybe some of the ways that we do that. We tend to interact with our students through the student complaint process, which was just mentioned. And walking them through those processes, at the institution. We do encourage that individuals feel free to reach out to our office as soon as you feel that there may be an issue that you cannot resolve. If there is communication and facilitation that needs to happen, if you feel that you've been treated unfairly, those are the areas and times that we encourage faculty, staff, and students to come see us. I do encourage people to phone our office. Just be mindful. We are in the state of Florida, and so if you put your concern or complaint in an email, that does become public record. So we are, again, in Edwards Hall, 211.
Good afternoon. Well, actually, good morning. Tony Behringer, Associate Provost for Academic and Faculty Affairs. And, I work very closely with the other panelists. As a matter of fact, I have a lot to say. Could you all defer your time to me for today?
Go for it.
No, in all seriousness. I usually deal with matters that deal with student and faculty and supervisor. And again, as I said, we try to make sure we do the most comprehensive thing. We make sure to practice due process. I think that's very important. And I never think a person should leave you.
Oh, you went out.
Hey, Nick. Okay, thanks. So, I just think regardless of the situation, if the person's the accused or the accuser, they should never leave the office feeling worse. You can always do something to lift that person's spirit or what have you. So I think that's very important. Also, and I think this is true with the rest of the panelists, we try to practice the 4 key elements of civility: social intelligence, kind of like being able to fit into different situations, whatever that situation might be, we're able to adjust and to adapt. So, of course, social intelligence is very important. I know Dr. Sheep mentioned emotional intelligence, so I wanted him to know there's more to that. So, social intelligence. And then cultural competence, that's very important. Being able to relate to different groups, different people, different situations, what have you. System thinking, this is one of the hard ones. System thinking, thinking beyond yourself, thinking about the big picture. What does this mean? So sometimes it's hard for us to divorce ourselves and realize that it's more to it. It affects more than just you. And it also means that you don't have to, quote unquote, win in a given situation. It's the big picture, what's best for the institution. And the last one is continuous learning in the sense that things change. And again, we have to be adaptable. We have to learn how to adjust. And if we practice those things, we can foster a very civil environment.
Thank you. He wasn't kidding about taking all of the time. Good morning. I'm Precious Gunter. I'm the Chief Equity, Ethics, and Compliance Officer and Title IX Coordinator. I've been with the university for 8 years. I'm in the Office of Institutional Equity and Compliance, and we are located in Edwards Hall. The primary function of our office, you see emails from us all the time highlighting trainings, annual mandatory training, which some of you have due now, right? That highlights discrimination and harassment, ethical issues or concerns, complaints and concerns. And we handle any protected category discrimination complaints that involve faculty, staff, students, vendors, et cetera. And so, you know, in the 8 years that I've been here, I have seen hundreds of complaints and concerns that come into our office. And I do think that a large portion of them, if we really looked at them, the crux of them hinge on issues of civility, on how people are interacting with each other in the workspace or how students are interacting with each other in various spaces and how they are engaging with one another in those processes. And so a lot of times we have formal and informal options in order to resolve our cases, and a lot of times we try to lean on those informal options because there's a lot of times there's low-hanging fruit there that can be utilized for the parties to reach an agreement. And it's just that they haven't had someone to help facilitate those conversations, or there's a lack of understanding or an educational component that needs to be had in order to help to bridge that gap. And so we really try to lean more on, you know, not trying to get people in trouble or trying to, you know, write people up and things of that nature, but trying to see how can we equip them with the tools and the resources and the education that can be beneficial to have conversations, to be civil with others in the workplace. Understanding that at times it can cross that line into what is considered unlawful behavior, you know, based on federal and state discrimination and harassment laws. But we believe that education is a really big piece of that component. And so we do encourage people to come and talk to us. If you have issues in your offices, to reach out to us, to come in, to design training and programming to work with you and your employees or your students to try to help bridge some of those gaps. And we work with everybody that's here on this panel. You know, our office basically interacts with everyone here every day in some manner or another. And so we all do work together very well to try to reach those resolutions as opposed to going the formal route.
All right, good morning, everyone. It looks like the air went out the room. It's okay, we got a few more minutes. Okay, so, my name is Christopher Blakely. I have the pleasure of serving as the Assistant Vice President for Campus Life and Dean of Students. In this role, I have the pleasure of managing some areas. Am I going in and out? Yes, hear me? Good? Okay, there we go. So I have the pleasure of supporting areas within campus life to include our Office of the Dean of Students, but as well as Eagle Media, Fraternity and Sorority Life, the Multicultural Leadership Development Center, Organization and Student Involvement, which includes our Programming Board, student organizations, and student government, as well as student care service and student conduct. So I know here today we're going to talk a little bit about resources, and particularly those of student conduct, but I think it's important for us to understand the portfolio of campus life because many things that we seek to do is to be proactive. The student code of conduct oftentimes is a reactive response, and we seek to try to be proactive in that. It's really important as well for the campus community to understand that campus life's aim is to be a premier learning-oriented environment. So everything we do, even outside the classroom, is guided towards learning and understanding, and that requires cultural competency, emotional intelligence, social intelligence. Campus life itself is rooted in 8 design principles, and I think that's important when we consider how we approach civility as well as civil discourse. And those design principles is something that we have been working through over the last 2 years because staff that been around me long enough to know, and some of the staff here in the room, I often refer to a statement that hope isn't a strategy. It's good to have hope, but hope can't be our strategy. We have to design for it. So if we want a civil campus, we want civility, how are we designing for it? We can't just hope it happens. So our design principles include collaboration, multiple forms of expression, healing, designing for margins, systemic change, analog and digital, designing for equity, and designing for ecological solutions. And when we blend these principles in our design, we can be proactive. Now, as it relates to the student code of conduct, the student code of conduct is designed to be educational in nature. It is an administrative process. It is not a judicial process. It's not the court of law. It's not the principal's office. So our student code of conduct is an opportunity for us to engage in our students with learning. So it's not an opportunity, a got you moment, or send you somewhere else where someone else can deal with you. What we encourage people to do is to call in. Loretta Ross, who's associate professor at the Smith College, who studies women and gender studies, she coined a phrase entitled calling in the calling out culture. Oftentimes we call people out, we even call on people in classrooms, but when we have times of civility, how often are we willing to call someone in to say, hey, this offended me, or this is a different perspective? So I encourage us that we take opportunities to call in when we have those disagreements. And lastly, I will say that a quote, for those who know, been around me enough, I can't leave a day without a quote. And the one I would share, and I share it to our table, is those who shy away from addressing the elephant in the room are doomed to carry the weight of it. So it's important for us to be able to address the elephant. If not, we'll continue to carry that weight. Thank you.
I like that. Hi, my name is Jana Sabo. I am the Assistant Director in Human Resources for Employee Development and Employee Relations. So a big part of employee relations is working with our staff and faculty to try to help navigate situations. So in the event that there is incivility or uncivility, thank you for that today, we can work in the lens of an informal process, like a facilitated discussion, facilitated conversation. What we do in that space is, like I said, it's an informal, it's not documented, there's no formal resolutions that come out, but we can meet with the parties who might be having some difficulty communicating, difficulty working together. We meet with them individually so that they have the opportunity to talk about what might be the root of the issue. We talk with them separately, then we bring them together to have that conversation together, and we help facilitate that conversation. This isn't mediation or anything of that nature. It's really just to enable employees, staff, faculty to be able to have productive conversation, professional conversation, civil conversation, and be able to get to the root of the problems and hopefully come out with some things that they can do to work together positively going forward. Like everyone else on the panel has said, I work very closely with all of these areas here. If there are things that bleed into other areas, we do those referrals for those topics, but we'll still work with folks on having those facilitated discussions if they're needed.
All right. And thank you for sticking to the 3 to 5 minutes that I allotted you. Appreciate that. But we have a little bit of time left, and in lieu of questions, I'll just ask you one maybe. So do you understand if you're a student in the audience and you're having an issue with another student or an instructor, which one of these might you pick to go to? Yell it out when you know. Might go to the ombuds. All right, if you're a faculty member and you're maybe having an issue with another faculty member or a department chair. Okay. Maybe Tony, I don't know about that. Anyway, so and God forbid you be in a harassment situation or something, edging up on the Civil Rights Act or anything like that, and of course Precious and a lot of staff in your office, Precious, deal with those things. All right. So anyway, take a picture of the screen and just know, even if you go to the wrong person, they will direct you to the right person if you have any type of a conflict there. And they're very, very good at what they do. So give them a round of applause. Thank you for coming today. Appreciate that. Okay. All right, so we are 10 minutes early. I can't believe it. Somebody take a picture of that. But there's plenty of food. Please take some back to your colleagues. That'd be a civil thing to do. And we'll see you on October 16th for the debate. Thank you.